Good morning. I'm pleased to present today a preview of a report that we have coming out in October of this year as a collaboration between GFA, ADM Capital Foundation, and a number of contributing authors. The report is on mobilizing sustainable finance to halt and reverse nature loss, so moving beyond carbon into nature and biodiversity. The report is based around case studies, and the purpose is to provide actionable blueprints to help organizations deploy sustainable finance for nature, especially those who are not as familiar with this, as it's not quite as mainstreamed yet as carbon is. The purpose of basing it around case studies is actually, as we heard earlier, that when you can provide examples of organizations that have done this already, it can demonstrate confidence to those who are just beginning the journey and sort of help them along the way with being able to demonstrate a pathway that already works. The context in which we're publishing this report is that nature loss is accelerating worldwide. This is particularly relevant in Asia. We have approximately half of the global biodiversity hotspots in Asia. This is both a huge challenge, as many of these are being degraded, especially in Southeast Asia, but there's also significant potential there. If we can find solutions to this, there's huge potential for change at scale. The case studies in the report are focused on Asia. We have examples from Hong Kong and mainland China, Southeast Asia, including Indonesia and Cambodia, some from Japan, and also from outside Asia. There are a lot of good examples of this in Europe at the moment, and so there are lessons that can be taken from European organizations as well and put into an Asian context. So there are four main recommendations that we pulled out of the illustrative case studies. The first is that we recommend that organizations align with global standards. This is particularly the TNFD, which is aligned itself with a TCFD, which helps to ease implementation, that organizations that are familiar with TCFD reporting can more easily understand the structure of the TNFD. This could also be any other global standards or regional that are applicable in your jurisdiction, but the TNFD is one of the main ones that we wanted to highlight. The second is to enhance risk monitoring and capacity building within your organization. We want nature risk to be seen as a very tangible and immediate risk. We are seeing this already in organizations. This is already becoming a very real financial risk to organizations that aren't aware of and mitigating these. The third is to pilot scalable solutions. There's no need to do everything at once. We wanted to highlight that it's okay to begin small. See what works for your organization and then scale that. And then the fourth recommendation is to mainstream sustainable finance structures for biodiversity. So the key is that this is not a niche topic. We want this to be on the agenda in conversations parallel to carbon. So we created a roadmap for organizations that are looking to include sustainable finance for nature. We recommend first that they set a framework. Again, this is related to the TNFD and also to assess materiality within their organization. Both what are the nature risks that are going to be relevant to us, and then also what are the ways that we are impacting nature based on our operations and where they take place. The second step is to select biodiversity indicators and then to monitor and collect data. There are significant challenges out there with nature-related data, both the availability of it, the comprehensiveness of it, but we do provide in the report a number of sources and ways to get around this instead of just waiting for more comprehensive data sets or something. And then the final step is to enhance and iterate. As more data sources become available, as more approaches become available, these can be woven in. So the idea is not to have something static and say this is this is what we're doing, but rather to be working with other organizations, with the industry, and to improve these things as we go and as nature becomes higher on the agenda. So with that, I'll hand to Patrick to discuss how a corporate is actually putting this into practice.
Thank you, Audrey. Nice to meet everyone here. From the corporate perspective, I think everyone would agree nature loss and ecosystem collapse pose significant risk to businesses, given that half of the world's total GDP is highly dependent or moderately dependent to nature. So for corporate, it's important to integrate nature into business strategy. It's essential for ensuring long-term business resilience and de-risking your supply chains, driving tangible value, and also more important to gaining a competitive advantage and secure access to new stream of nature finance, as presented by Audrey. So where do we start? So we're putting out in the report 5 critical steps. The first one, of course, is to first of all get your understanding better about nature-related risks and opportunities, which is generated from your dependencies on nature and also your impact of nature. So the TNFD LEAP framework actually provides a structure for you to do just that assessment by identifying the material exposures and opportunities that may affect your bottom line. And secondly, it's important that with that data generated from the first step, how do we use those data, leverage that data to do a strategic response? So a business can then develop a strategy to manage those material risks and opportunities. This means maybe the target align with the United Nations Global Biodiversity Framework, and also we're aware that Hong Kong is also very busy developing the local BSAP, the Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, where your company's target can actually align with these plans. And this alignment will, of course, help you to future-proof your strategy against regulatory shift and a very rapidly evolving market. Step 3 is the operationalizing. After you have a strategy, after you operationalize in your operations. And this requires some sort of transforming your operations and applying the mitigation hierarchy, for example, to avoid and minimize biodiversity loss, moving towards practices like sustainable sourcing and investing in regenerative practices, and also innovating with word that we hear more, nature-based solutions. That means leveraging nature's power to actually solve society problem, for example. For me as a real estate developer, we've been doing landscaping plan, but more we're now doing it as a way that is also a nature-based solution. In Taikoo Square, in Taikoo Place in Korea Bay, we have a new garden. It's not just a nicely developed design garden, but it's a strategic nature-based solutions investment that help us to mitigate urban heat stress by increasing around 27% of firmly comfortable area in that business district that improves the community's well-being and enhances asset value. And the step 5, finally, of course, is to prepare for TNFD-aligned disclosures. And this is the mechanism to communicate your nature investment to investors and stakeholders in a standardized and credible manner. And this is an essential step to ensure your readiness to capture the emerging opportunities from nature finance. So to wrap up, we have a couple of call to actions also in the report and here to support you at every step in this journey. First, of course, is to deepen your knowledge. I think all the things so far we covered today are detailed in the report, and the report is going to be officially launched in October. So to receive a copy directly into your inbox, please scan this QR code, and the HKGFA team will ensure you get it upon publications. And we value your expertise, so please give us a rate and share your feedback with us. And second is to join the conversation. We invite you to join the TNFD consultation group here in Hong Kong, co-convened by HKGFA and the Business Environment Council. This is your local forum to build awareness, address knowledge gaps, and shape the practical implementation of TNFD locally in Hong Kong. The next meeting is scheduled for quarter 3 in this year. And thirdly, to build your capacity, there are 2 key streams of resources. First, of course, the HKGFA, they have run a nature webinars series previously in this early year, and they are all now online. They provide a deep dive into market updates and case studies. And secondly, the TNFD also has got to establish a knowledge hub, offers open access, self-paced learning resources via the Learning Lab, and even white label training content, targeting training providers, educational institutes, and consultants via a trainer portal. And finally, and most importantly, to make your commitment. In the lead up to COP30 in Berlin, Brazil this year, we invite you to become an official TNFD adopter. This is for every corporate and financial institutions that has either published it or is preparing a TNFD aligned report. By registering, you will be recognized as part of this global movement, and your name and support will be announced at COP30 in November at Berlin COP30. So to conclude, scan the code, join the group, build your knowledge, and become an adopter. So I pass the time back to Audrey to close up.
So we'd like to thank our many collaborative authors for this report. And again, it'll be coming out in October. So to echo Patrick, we hope that you download it, find it interesting, and that this can move the conversation to action.
Thank you.